The fluorescent lights flickered above Maya Reeves as she pressed both hands against the gushing wound, her scrubs already soaked crimson. Across the trauma bay, Dr. Harrison Webb didn't even look up from his phone. "Someone get the cleaning lady out of my ER," he muttered, and 3 nurses actually laughed. Maya's jaw tightened, her fingers never leaving the patient's femoral artery, the same pressure point she'd used in Kandahar when her convoy was hit and her medic bag was 40 meters away in a burning Humvee. She said nothing. She never did. But in 6 hours, when the helicopters descended on Westridge Medical Center and the man in the black uniform stepped through those doors, Harrison Webb would learn that the woman he'd spent 3 months belittling wasn't just a nurse. She was the reason half his surgical department was still breathing. If you want to see how far this story can travel, drop a comment with your city and hit subscribe, because what happens next will make you rethink everyone you've ever underestimated. Maya clocked in at 5:47 a.m., same as always. The night shift was still buzzing. 2 MV as, 1 overdose, a construction worker with a rebar through his shoulder. She tied her hair back, grabbed a lukewarm coffee from the break room, and scanned the board. Bed 12 needed vitals. Bed 9 was waiting on labs. Bed 3 had been waiting on a consult for 2 hours. "Reeves." Charge nurse Linda Mosher didn't look up from her tablet. "Webb wants you off traumas. You're on discharges today." Maya paused mid-sip. "We're short 2 nurses. Traumas are stacked." "Not my call." "Whose call is it?" Linda finally met her eyes. There was something tired there, maybe even apologetic. "Just do discharges, Maya, please." She didn't argue. She learned a long time ago that arguing in a hospital was like arguing in the military. It didn't matter if you were right. It mattered who had the rank. So she nodded, dumped the coffee, and headed to bed 18, where an elderly man with pneumonia had finally cleared for discharge. He smiled when he saw her. "You're the one who stayed with me during the fever," he said. "Just doing my job, Mr. Carver." "You held my hand." "I remember that." She helped him into his wheelchair, went over his medications twice, and made sure his daughter had her number in case anything went south at home. By the time she rolled him to the lobby, it was almost 7. The morning shift doctors were filtering in, Webb among them. Harrison Webb was 42, confident, and had been written up in Boston Medical Journal for a liver resection technique that reduced operative time by 30%. He wore Italian loafers and had a habit of snapping his fingers when he wanted someone's attention. He snapped them now as Maya walked past the nurse's station. "Reeves, coffee. 2 sugars." She stopped. "I'm not your assistant, Dr. Webb." "You're a nurse. I'm a surgeon. That's how it works. There's a Keurig 10 feet from you." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "You've got an attitude problem. You know that?" "I've got a patient load problem. If you want coffee, make it yourself." The station went quiet. One of the residents, Derek Wu, coughed into his hand. Webb's face darkened, but before he could respond, the radio on Linda's belt crackled. "Medic 23 en route. ETA 4 minutes. 31-year-old male, GSW to the chest, BP 70 over 40, and dropping. Intubated in the field." Maya was already moving. She grabbed a gown, tied it on, and checked the crash cart. Webb strode into Trauma Bay 1 like he owned it, which technically he did every 3rd rotation. He snapped gloves on, muttered something about the weekend starting early, and positioned himself at the head of the bed. 2 residents flanked him. Maya prepped the IV lines, hung O negative, and checked the suction. The paramedics crashed through the double doors. The patient was young, Hispanic, tattoos crawling up both arms. His chest was a mess. Entry wound just right of the sternum, exit wound God knew where. The medic doing compressions looked like he'd been doing them for a while. "On my count," Webb said. 1, 2, 3. They transferred him. Maya cut the shirt away, placed the pads, checked the monitor. Flatline. Webb swore, called for EPI, started compressions himself. Maya pushed the epi, watched the line, and noticed the wound angle. "Doctor, the trajectory's lateral. Might have clipped the subclavian." "I can see that, Reeves." "If it's the subclavian, he's bleeding into the chest cavity. We need to crack him." Webb shot her a look that could have frozen water. "I don't need a nurse telling me how to run a trauma. I'm telling you he's dying. Everyone's dying until they're not. Get me another epi." She got the epi. Webb pushed it. Nothing. He did another round of compressions. Still nothing. The monitor stayed flat. The residents exchanged glances. Maya's hands moved on autopilot. She'd seen this before. Not in this hospital. Not in this clean, bright room with laminate floors and LED lights. But in places where the walls were canvas and the floors were sand, and the only thing between a soldier and death was whoever had the nerve to keep moving. "He's gone," Webb finally said. He stepped back, stripped his gloves off, and tossed them into the bin. "Time of death, 7:14. Maya stared at the kid on the table. 26, maybe. Someone's son. "You should have cracked him." Webb turned slowly. "Excuse me?" He had a subclavian bleed. You don't push epi on a subclavian bleed. You crack the chest and clamp the vessel. You don't crack a chest on a flatline in the ER unless you've got a reason to think it'll work. He had a reason. He was dead when he came in. He wasn't. The room was silent now. Even the residents had gone still. Webb took a step toward her. "You want to tell me how to do my job, Reeves? You got a medical degree I don't know about?" "I've got experience. As a nurse. As someone who's kept people alive when they should have died." "Where? Night shift at County General?" She didn't answer. Webb's jaw tightened. "You're off my traumas. Effective immediately. Go run discharges. You just killed that kid because you didn't listen." The slap of his badge hitting the counter was louder than it should have been. "Out. Now." She left. Not because she wanted to, but because if she stayed, she'd say something that would cost her the job. And she needed the job. She needed it because this was the only hospital in Westridge that didn't ask too many questions about the 3-year gap in her resume. The gap between her service record and her nursing license. The gap she didn't talk about. The hallway was too bright. The floors squeaked under her sneakers. She passed the radiology wing, past the pharmacy, and ended up in the employee bathroom near the loading dock. She locked the door, ran cold water, and splashed her face. When she looked up, the mirror showed someone she barely recognized anymore. Tired eyes, lines around her mouth that hadn't been there 5 years ago. Her hands were shaking. She gripped the sink until they stopped. The rest of the morning blurred. Discharges, med reconciliations. One combative dementia patient who kept trying to pull his IV. By noon, her back hurt and her head hurt, and she hadn't eaten. She grabbed a granola bar from the vending machine and sat in the stairwell because the break room was full of people who'd heard about the Webb incident and wanted to either defend him or trash talk her. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You still at Westridge?" She frowned, typed back, "Who is this?" "Sergeant Alvarez, 4th Marines. You saved my life in Helmand. Heard you were stateside now." Her chest tightened. She hadn't heard that name in 4 years. "How'd you get this number?" "Ortiz gave it to me. He's in San Diego now. Works for NCIS. Said you went quiet after you got out." "I like quiet. I get that. Just wanted to say thanks again. You ever need anything, you call me. I mean that." She stared at the screen, typed, "Thanks, Alvarez. Stay safe." Then she put the phone away and ate the granola bar and tried not to think about sand and smoke and the sound a Humvee makes when an IED detonates under the front axle. Someone knocked on the stairwell door. Maya looked up. It was Sandra Kim, one of the ER techs. Young, barely out of school, always smiling. "Hey, you okay?" "I'm fine." "Webb's a jerk. Everyone knows it." Maya didn't respond. Sandra sat down on the step below her. "I heard what you said. About the subclavian. You were right. Doesn't matter now." "It matters. That guy had a family. They're out in the waiting room. His mom's asking questions." Maya closed her eyes. "What kind of questions?" "Why nobody cracked his chest? Why they just did compressions? She's a nurse too. Retired. She knows what should have happened." "Webb won't listen to her either." "Maybe, but she's filing a complaint with the state board." Maya looked at Sandra. "How do you know?" "I was there when she told the patient advocate. She's pissed, and she's not wrong." Maya stood, brushed off her scrubs, and headed back to the floor. Sandra followed. "Where are you going?" "To do my job." "Maya." "I'm fine, Sandra. Really." But she wasn't fine. She was angry. And the anger was familiar. It was the same anger she'd felt in Kandahar when a colonel overruled her on a field amputation and the soldier died 2 hours later from sepsis. The same anger she'd felt when a supply sergeant refused to send morphine to her field hospital because the paperwork wasn't filed correctly, and she'd had to sedate a 19-year-old with a shattered pelvis using ketamine meant for sedating horses. Anger was useful. It kept her moving when everything else told her to stop. By 3 p.m., the ER was a zoo. Multi-car pileup on Route 9. Webb was in the OR. 2 other attendings were juggling 6 criticals. Linda pulled Maya back into traumas because they were drowning. She worked fast. Lines, meds, airways, pressure. One of the crash victims was a kid, maybe 9, with a headlock and a broken arm. He was crying for his mom. Maya held his hand while the resident stitched him up. "You're doing great," she told him. "It hurts." "I know, but you're tough. I can tell." "How?" "You're not screaming. Tough people don't scream. They just breathe." He sniffled, nodded, and focused on breathing. When the resident finished, the kid's mom came in, frantic, tearful, apologizing for letting him ride in the front seat. Maya told her it was okay. Told her he'd be fine. The mom hugged her, and Maya let her, because sometimes people just needed to hold on to someone. At 4:15, the hospital loudspeakers crackled. "Code Silver, lobby. Code Silver, lobby." Code Silver meant an active threat. Weapon. Possibly a shooter. Maya's blood went cold. She'd done active shooter drills. Everyone had. But drills were different than the real thing. She locked the trauma bay door, grabbed the crash cart, and positioned it in front of the entrance. The residents looked at her like she was insane. "What are you doing?" Derek Wu asked. "Blocking the door." "With a crash cart? You got a better idea?" He didn't. They waited. The hospital went silent in that specific way that meant everyone was hiding. Maya's pulse was steady. Her hands were steady. Muscle memory. She'd done this before. Secured a field hospital when insurgents breached the perimeter. That time she'd had a sidearm. This time she had a crash cart and a pair of scissors. The loudspeaker crackled again. Code Silver resolved. Suspect in custody. Derek exhaled. Jesus. Maya moved the cart back, unlocked the door, and went to check on the patients. None of them had noticed. Most were too medicated or too hurt. She was grateful for that. At 5:30, Linda found her in the med room. "You okay?" "I'm fine." "You moved that cart like you've done it before." Maya didn't answer. Linda studied her for a moment, then sighed. "Webb filed a formal complaint. Said you undermined him in front of the residents and accused him of malpractice." "I didn't accuse him of malpractice. I told him he was wrong." "That's the same thing to a guy like Webb." "Is it?" "Maya." Linda's voice softened. "I know you're good. I know you care. But you've got to be smart about this. Webb's got pull. You don't. So I should have kept my mouth shut and let the kid die." "The kid was already dead. You don't know that." Linda rubbed her temples. "Just try to stay out of his way, okay?" Maya nodded, but she didn't mean it. She finished the rest of her shift on autopilot. Another discharge. Another medication review. Another family member asking questions she couldn't fully answer because the attending hadn't updated the chart. By 6:30, she was exhausted. Her feet ached. Her shoulders were tight. She clocked out, changed in the locker room, and ignored the whispers that followed her like smoke. In the parking lot, the evening was cooling off. The sky had gone from blue to deep purple, clouds piling up in the west. Rain soon. She unlocked her Civic, tossed her bag in the back, and sat behind the wheel for a long moment. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Hello? Maya Reeves?" The voice was calm, official, male. "Who's asking?" "Captain Jason Hale, U.S. Army Medical Command. I'm trying to reach the former Specialist Reeves, 4th Combat Support Hospital, Kandahar." Her stomach dropped. "That's me." "Good. We have a situation. Are you still at Westridge Medical Center?" "I just left. Why?" "We need you to turn around and go back inside. Right now." "What's going on?" "There's been an incident. Classified. I can't give you details over the phone, but we have a convoy en route to your hospital. They'll be there in 40 minutes. I need you inside and ready. Ready for what? You'll know when they arrive. Captain, I don't... Specialist Reeves. His voice hardened. This is not a request. Get inside. Stay available. And don't tell anyone I called. The line went dead. Maya sat in the car, gripping the phone. Her heart was pounding now. She thought about ignoring it. Thought about driving home, locking the door, and pretending she'd never answered. But the tone in Hale's voice wasn't just authority. It was urgency, and she knew that tone. She'd heard it in Kandahar when a convoy rolled in with casualties and everyone had to move fast or people died. She started the car, pulled back into the lot, and walked back inside. The ER was quieter now. Night shift had taken over. A few stragglers in the waiting room, someone with a cough, someone with a twisted ankle. Maya found Linda at the nurse's station doing end-of-shift paperwork. I need to stick around. Something's coming in. Linda frowned. What? I don't know yet, but I need to be here. Maya, your shift's over. Go home. I can't. Why not? She couldn't answer that, not truthfully, so she lied. I forgot to finish my charting. I'll be in the back. Linda didn't look convinced, but she nodded. Maya grabbed a chair in the staff lounge and waited. The minutes crawled. She checked her phone. No messages. She thought about calling Hale back, but she didn't have his number. 20 minutes passed. 30. At 7:52, the ambulance bay doors opened and 3 black SUVs rolled in, followed by 2 military transport trucks. No sirens, no lights, just silent practice coordination. Soldiers in fatigues poured out, rifles slung, faces hard. A man in a dark uniform stepped forward. No insignia, no name tape, just a radio clipped to his vest. He scanned the ER, his eyes locking on Maya. Specialist Reeves? She stood slowly. That's me. Captain Hale sends his regards. We've got wounded inbound. Classified OP, and we need your help. Behind him, the trauma bay doors opened. Harrison Webb stepped out, irritated and confused. What the hell is this? Who authorized... The man in black turned to him. This facility is now under temporary federal jurisdiction. You'll be briefed shortly. Right now, I need your trauma bays cleared and your best people on deck. Webb's face went red. You can't just... We can, and we did. Now move. Webb looked at Maya, then at the soldiers, then back at Maya. Something flickered in his expression. Confusion, maybe fear. He opened his mouth, closed it, then gestured angrily at the trauma bays. Fine, clear them, but I want to know what's going on. You'll know when we're ready to tell you. The man in black turned back to Maya. You ready? She nodded. What have we got? 4 critical, all GSWs. 1 with a pneumothorax, 2 with abdominal penetrations, 1 with a femoral artery bleed. They're 2 minutes out. Maya's brain shifted gears. She was already running through protocols, airways, lines, blood products, imaging. I need at least 3 more nurses, and a surgeon who knows what they're doing. The man in black smiled, just a fraction. You're the surgeon. I'm a nurse. You were a combat medic. You've done field surgeries. I read your file. That was a long time ago. It's like riding a bike. He gestured toward the trauma bay. You've got 2 minutes. Make it work. Maya didn't waste time arguing. She grabbed Sandra, pulled in 2 night shift nurses. 1 named Rachel, 1 named Thomas, and prepped the bays. Gloves, gowns, crash carts, O-negative stacked and ready. Webb hovered in the doorway, looking like someone had just told him his car got towed. This is insane, he muttered. Maya ignored him. The doors burst open. 4 stretchers, 4 soldiers, all young, all bleeding. The first one had a sucking chest wound, his breathing rapid and shallow. Maya went to him immediately. Pneumothorax, I need a chest tube kit, now. Rachel handed it to her. Maya didn't hesitate. She'd done this 100 times in the field. She prepped the site, made the incision, and inserted the tube. Air hissed out. The soldier's breathing eased. She secured the tube, checked the seal, and moved to the next bed. Abdominal GSW. Entry wound just below the ribs, no exit, blood pooling under him. She palpated his abdomen, rigid, distended, internal bleeding. She needed imaging, but there wasn't time. Get him to OR, now. We don't have an OR prepped, Rachel said. Then prep one. Move. The third soldier had taken 2 rounds to the abdomen. He was conscious, barely, his face gray. Maya checked his pulse, thready, weak. She started a line, hung blood, and called for an ultrasound. Sandra brought it. Maya ran the probe over his abdomen. Free fluid, lots of it. He's bleeding out. OR, now! Webb stepped forward. I'll take him. Maya looked at him. You sure? I'm a surgeon. This is what I do. She nodded. Webb took the stretcher and disappeared down the hall. The fourth soldier was the worst. Femoral artery bleed, the kind that should have killed him already. His leg was a mess. Shredded fabric, bone fragments, blood everywhere. Maya grabbed a tourniquet, applied it high and tight, and watched the bleeding slow. He needs vascular. Do we have vascular? Dr. Patel's on call, Tomas said. I'll page him. Tell him to get here now. She worked fast, stabilizing the leg, starting lines, pushing fluids. The soldier looked up at her, his eyes glassy. Am I going to die? Not today. You sure? I'm sure. He closed his eyes. His pulse was stronger now. The tourniquet was holding. Dr. Patel arrived 10 minutes later, took one look at the leg, and wheeled the soldier to the OR without a word. Maya stood in the middle of the trauma bay, covered in blood, her hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. The man in black approached her, his expression unreadable. Good work, specialist. Don't call me that. Why not? It's what you are. Not anymore. You sure about that? She didn't answer. He gestured toward the hallway. Captain Hale wants to speak with you. He's upstairs. Why? Because you just saved 4 lives. And because there's something you need to know. Maya followed him out of the ER, through the main corridor, past the elevators, and into a conference room on the 3rd floor. Captain Hale was waiting. He was older than she expected. 50, maybe, with gray at his temples and a scar running through his left eyebrow. He stood when she entered. Specialist Reeves, thank you for coming. I didn't have much choice. No, you didn't. He gestured to a chair. Sit. She sat. Hale sat across from her, folding his hands on the table. I'm going to be direct. We need you back. Back where? Active duty. Medical command. We're deploying a rapid response unit to a hostile zone, and we need experienced combat medics. You're on the short list. Maya shook her head. I'm out. I've been out for 4 years. I know, but your discharge was honorable. Your record's clean, and you're one of the best field medics I've ever seen. I'm a nurse now. You're a combat medic who happens to have a nursing license. There's a difference. I don't want to go back. I get that, but I'm not asking because I want to. I'm asking because we don't have a choice. The unit deploys in 3 weeks. We need you. Maya stood. I'm not doing it. Reeves. I said no. Hale's expression hardened. You know what's happening in that ER right now? Those 4 soldiers you just saved? They're part of a counter-terror op that went sideways. We lost 6 men. 6. And the only reason those 4 are alive is because you were here. If you'd been home, they'd be dead. You think about that. Maya's hands clenched. That's not fair. War's not fair. You know that better than anyone. She turned toward the door. Hale's voice stopped her. Webb's gonna fire you. You know that, right? She looked back. What? The complaint he filed. It's going to the board. They'll review it and they'll side with him. You'll lose your license. Maybe not permanently, but long enough that you won't work in this state for a year, maybe 2. How do you know that? Because I made some calls. Webb's connected. He's got friends on the board, and you embarrassed him in front of his residents. Men like that don't forget. Maya's jaw tightened. So what are you saying? I'm saying you've got a choice. Come back to active duty, and I'll make sure that complaint disappears. Stay here, and you're done. That's not a choice. That's blackmail. Call it what you want, but the offer stands. She walked out. Oops. By the time Maya got back to the ER, it was past 9. The trauma bays were empty now, the floors scrubbed, the blood gone. Webb was standing at the nurse's station, talking to Linda. He saw Maya and his expression soured. Reeves. My office. Now. She followed him down the hall, into a cramped office that smelled like old coffee and antiseptic. Webb closed the door, turned to face her. What the hell was that? What was what? You. Acting like you run this place. taking over my trauma bay, giving orders. Someone had to. I'm the attending. I give the orders. You weren't there. Because I was in the OR, saving a life. So was I. Webb's face reddened. You're a nurse, Reeves. That's it. You don't get to make clinical decisions. You don't get to perform procedures. And you sure as hell don't get to undermine me in front of federal agents. Those soldiers would be dead if I hadn't stepped in. You don't know that. Yes, I do. And so do you. Webb slammed his hand on the desk. You're done. As of tonight, you're suspended pending review. Turn in your badge. Maya stared at him. You're serious? Dead serious. She pulled her badge off, tossed it on his desk, and walked out. She didn't look back. Didn't say goodbye to Linda or Sandra or anyone else. She just left. In the parking lot, the rain had started. Cold, steady, soaking through her scrubs in seconds. She got in her car, sat there with the engine running, and realized she had nowhere to go. No job. No plan. Just a phone call from a captain who wanted to send her back to a war she'd spent 4 years trying to forget. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Offer stands. You've got 48 hours to decide. Hey, Lay. She stared at the screen, then threw the phone into the passenger seat and drove home through the rain, her hands tight on the wheel, her chest hollow and aching in a way she didn't have words for. The apartment was cold when she got home. She'd left the heat off to save money, and now the place felt like a tomb. Maya dropped her keys on the counter, peeled off her wet scrubs, and stood in the bathroom under a scalding shower until her skin turned red. The water didn't wash away the feeling. It never did. She toweled off, pulled on sweatpants and an old army t-shirt, and opened the fridge. A carton of eggs, half a loaf of bread, some wilted lettuce. She wasn't hungry anyway. She grabbed a beer instead, twisted the cap off, and sat on the couch in the dark. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. She ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. Finally, she picked it up. 3 messages. The first was from Sandra. Everyone's talking about what you did tonight. You're a hero. The second was from Linda. Call me when you can. We need to talk. The third was from a number she didn't recognize. This is Colonel Diane Ashford, Army Medical Command. Captain Hale briefed me on your situation. We need to meet. Tomorrow, 0900. Address attached. This is not optional. Maya stared at the screen. Not optional. She almost laughed. Nothing in her life had been optional for a long time. Not Kandahar. Not the discharge. Not the decision to bury everything she'd seen and done under a nursing degree and a quiet life in a city where nobody knew her name. She set the phone down, drank the beer, and closed her eyes. Sleep didn't come. It never did on nights like this. Instead, she lay on the couch and watched the ceiling fan turn and thought about the 4 soldiers she'd saved. Thought about the ones she hadn't. Thought about a 19-year-old kid named Marcus Delgado who'd bled out in her arms because the medevac was 20 minutes late and she'd run out of gauze, and the only thing left to do was hold his hand and lie to him about how he was going to be fine. At 3 a.m., she got up, grabbed her laptop, and looked up the address Colonel Ashford had sent. It was a building downtown, unmarked, the kind of place that didn't advertise what it was. She looked up Ashford, too. Decorated. Multiple deployments. Silver Star. The kind of officer who didn't waste time on small talk. Maya closed the laptop and stared at the blank screen. 48 hours, Hale had said. She had 46 left. She tried to sleep again, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw the GSW patient from that morning, the kid on the table, the way his chest had stopped moving, the way Webb had just walked away like it didn't matter. Like people were disposable. She'd seen that attitude before, in commanders who cared more about paperwork than bodies, and it had cost lives then too. Around 5, she gave up on sleep entirely. She made coffee, stood at the kitchen window, and watched the city wake up. Garbage trucks rumbling through alleyways. A woman walking 3 dogs. A kid on a bike delivering newspapers like it was still 1995. Normal life. The kind she'd never quite figured out how to live. Her phone rang. She almost didn't answer, but the caller ID said Linda. Yeah. Did I wake you? I was up. Maya, listen. I talked to the union rep. There's a process for this. You can fight the suspension. We can file a grievance. What's the point? The point is you didn't do anything wrong. The point is Webb's abusing his position, and someone needs to call him on it. Maya poured more coffee. And you think the union's going to side with a nurse over a surgeon? I think they'll side with what's right. That's not how it works, Linda. You know that. There was a long silence. Then Linda said, "Where were you last night, after you left?" "Home." "Doing what?" "Drinking beer, staring at walls, the usual." "Maya, I have to go. I'll call you later." She hung up before Linda could argue. She finished the coffee, got dressed, and drove downtown. The building Ashford had specified was exactly what she'd expected. Concrete, anonymous, designed to be forgotten. She parked across the street and sat there for 10 minutes, debating whether to go in or just drive away and deal with the consequences later. But there were always consequences. That was the thing nobody told you about being a medic. You could save 100 lives and lose one, and the one you lost would follow you forever. Marcus Delgado. The kid whose name she hadn't even learned before he died on Webb's table. All the others whose faces blurred together in her memory until they were just a weight she carried everywhere. She got out of the car and walked to the building. Morning came gray and miserable. Rain still falling, the kind that felt personal. The lobby was sterile, corporate, nothing that suggested military operations. A young man in a suit sat behind the desk, typing. He looked up when she approached. Name. Maya Reeves. He scanned her ID, typed something, handed it back. Third floor. Colonel Ashford is expecting you. The elevator was silent except for the mechanical hum. Maya watched her reflection in the polished doors. She looked older than she felt, tired in a way that sleep wouldn't fix. The doors opened on the third floor and she stepped into a hallway lined with frosted glass offices. At the end was a conference room. The door was open. Colonel Diane Ashford stood by the window, hands clasped behind her back. She was tall, mid-50s, gray hair cut military short. She turned when Maya entered. Specialist Reeves, sit. Maya sat. Ashford studied her for a long moment, then moved to the table and sat across from her. You had an interesting night. That's one way to put it. 4 critical saves, 0 losses, in a civilian facility with minimal resources and no prep time. That's not luck, that's skill. Ashford opened a folder. 4th Combat Support Hospital, Kandahar. 83 documented saves, 17 field surgeries under fire, 2 Bronze Stars. Honorable discharge following acute stress reaction after a convoy ambush. Maya's jaw tightened. That's in my file. Your file is classified. I had to pull strings to see it. Ashford closed the folder. You left the Army because you couldn't handle it anymore. That's what the paperwork says. But I don't think that's the whole story. What do you think the story is? I think you left because you were tired of watching people die for no good reason. Tired of taking orders from people who didn't understand what it was like on the ground. Tired of being expendable. Ashford leaned back. Am I close? Maya didn't answer. Ashford waited, patient, relentless. Finally, Maya said, What do you want? We're assembling a rapid response medical unit. Small team, high-risk operations, deployed to hostile zones where conventional support isn't available. We need a lead medic. Someone with combat experience. Someone who can make decisions under fire. Someone like you. I'm out. You were out, past tense. The moment you saved those 4 soldiers last night, you stopped being out. I'm a civilian. You're a soldier pretending to be a civilian. There's a difference. Ashford slid a document across the table. This is a contractor agreement. 6 months. Hazard pay, full benefits, no questions asked when it's over. You sign this, you report to Fort Bragg in 2 weeks for mission briefing. You don't sign it, you go back to your apartment and wait for Harrison Webb to destroy your career. Maya looked at the document but didn't touch it. You talked to Hale. Hale works for me. He identified you as a candidate. I approved it. So this was planned. Nothing about last night was planned, but we're prepared to take advantage of opportunities when they present themselves. Ashford's expression didn't change. You're good at what you do, Reeves. Better than most. You could spend the rest of your life working in ERs, fighting with doctors who don't respect you, saving lives that don't get counted because nobody's keeping score. Or you can come back and do what you were trained to do. What I was trained to do got people killed. What you were trained to do kept people alive. Marcus Delgado died because the medevac was late. Not because of you. Maya's hands clenched. How do you know about Delgado? Because I read the after-action report. Because I know what happened that day. And because I know you've been carrying it around for 4 years like it was your fault. Ashford leaned forward. It wasn't. But if you want to spend the rest of your life punishing yourself, that's your choice. Just know that while you're doing that, people who need you are dying because you're not there. The words hit like a punch. Maya stood. I need to think about it. You have 48 hours. After that, the offer's gone. Maya walked out without responding. She made it to the elevator, then the lobby, then the parking lot, before her legs started shaking. She sat in her car with the engine off and the rain drumming on the roof and tried to remember how to breathe. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sandra. Webb's calling a staff meeting tomorrow morning. He's going to make an announcement. Linda thinks it's about you. Maya tossed the phone onto the passenger seat and drove. She ended up at the diner on Route 7, the one with the peeling paint and the neon sign that only half worked. Inside, the air smelled like grease and old coffee. She slid into a booth by the window and ordered eggs and toast from a waitress who looked as tired as Maya felt. While she waited, she pulled out her phone and scrolled through the news. The headline on the local site read, Westridge Medical under scrutiny after patient death. She clicked the article. It was about the GSW patient, about how the family was demanding answers, about how Dr. Harrison Webb, the attending physician, had declined to comment. The eggs arrived. Maya ate mechanically, tasting nothing. Across from her, an old man was reading a newspaper. He glanced up, met her eyes, and nodded. She nodded back. The kind of acknowledgement strangers give each other when they recognize something familiar. Exhaustion, maybe, or loneliness. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Maya Reeves? Yeah. This is Tom Carver. You probably don't remember me, but you took care of my father at Westridge, pneumonia patient, bed 18. Maya set her fork down. Mr. Carver? Yeah, I remember. How's he doing? He's good. Great, actually. He's home, complaining about his meds, driving me up a wall. But he wanted me to call you, said you stayed with him, held his hand when the fever spiked. He said you told him he was going to be okay, and he believed you. I was just doing my job. Maybe, but he remembers, and I remember. Tom's voice wavered slightly. I saw the news, about the hospital, about Dr. Webb. I just wanted you to know people remember the good ones, the ones who care. The line went quiet for a moment. Then Tom said, Take care of yourself, Miss Reeves. He hung up. Maya stared at the phone, then set it down and finished her eggs. The waitress refilled her coffee without asking. Outside, the rain had eased to a drizzle. Maya paid the check, left a $20 tip, and walked back to her car. She drove aimlessly for a while. No destination, just movement. She passed the hospital and saw the news van parked in the front lot. Saw a reporter doing a stand-up, probably talking about the patient death, about accountability, about all the things that sounded good on camera but meant nothing in the moment when someone was bleeding out and you had to decide between bad options and worse ones. She kept driving, past the hospital, past the downtown, out toward the industrial district where the warehouses gave way to empty lots and chain-link fences. She parked in front of an abandoned factory, killed the engine, and sat there. Her phone buzzed, a text from a number she didn't recognize. This is Sergeant Alvarez. Heard you're considering coming back. Do it. We need people like you. She stared at the message, typed back. How'd you hear? Ortiz talks. Word travels fast. You were the best medic I ever worked with. Don't waste that. Maya set the phone down and closed her eyes. The rain had started again, harder now, pounding on the roof like it was trying to break through. She thought about Kandahar, about the field hospital with its canvas walls and diesel generators, and the smell of blood and antiseptic that never quite washed out. About the soldiers she'd saved and the ones she hadn't, and the way it felt to be useful, to be needed, to be the difference between someone living and dying. She thought about Webb, about his smug face and his Italian loafers, and the way he'd let that kid die because he was too arrogant to listen, about the suspension and the complaint and the career that was already over whether she admitted it or not. She thought about the contract sitting in Ashford's office. 6 months. Hazard pay. A way out. Or a way back in. depending on how you looked at it. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Linda. Meetings at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Webb's announcing your termination. I'm sorry, Maya. I tried to stop it. Maya read the message 3 times. Then she started the car and drove home. The apartment felt smaller when she walked in. Darker, like the walls were closing in. She dropped her bag, kicked off her shoes, and stood in the middle of the living room. The furniture was cheap, second-hand. The walls were bare except for a single framed photo, her army unit, grinning in front of a Humvee, all of them young and stupid and convinced they were going to live forever. Half of them were dead now. She pulled the photo off the wall and set it face down on the couch. Then she went to the bedroom, pulled a duffel bag from the back of the closet, and started packing. Clothes, boots, the field manual she'd kept even though she told herself she'd never need it again. A first aid kit that was probably expired but she couldn't bring herself to throw away. Her phone rang. She ignored it. It rang again and again. Finally, she answered, "What?" "Maya, it's Linda. Where are you?" "Home." "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "You don't sound fine. You sound like you're leaving." Maya didn't answer. Linda's voice softened. "Don't do this. Don't run. You can fight this. We can fight this." "There's nothing to fight, Linda. Webb won. He always wins. That's how it works." "So what, you're just going to disappear?" "Something like that." "That's not you. You're not a quitter." Maya sat on the edge of the bed, the phone pressed to her ear. "You don't know me, Linda. You think you do, but you don't." "Then tell me. Help me understand." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because I'm tired. I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of caring about things that don't matter. I'm tired of watching people die because someone higher up made a bad call." Her voice cracked. "I'm just tired." There was a long silence. Then Linda said, "I'm coming over." "Don't. I'm already in the car." The line went dead. Maya set the phone down and stared at the duffel bag. 20 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. She didn't answer. The knock came again, harder. "Maya, open the door." She opened it. Linda pushed past her, looked around the apartment, saw the duffel bag on the bed. "You're leaving." "Yeah." "Where?" "I can't tell you." "Can't or won't?" "Both." Linda turned to face her. "This is about more than Webb, isn't it? This is about whatever happened when you were deployed." Maya's jaw tightened. "I don't talk about that." "Maybe you should. And maybe you should mind your own business." Linda didn't flinch. "You're my friend, Maya. That makes it my business." "We're not friends. We're coworkers." "You really believe that?" Maya didn't answer. Linda crossed the room, grabbed her by the shoulders. "Listen to me. I don't know what you went through. I don't know what you're running from. But I know you're good at what you do. I know you care. And I know that if you leave now, you're going to regret it. I've regretted plenty of things. One more won't make a difference." Linda let go, stepped back. Her eyes were wet. "You're making a mistake. It's mine to make." Linda left without another word. Maya locked the door, finished packing, and zipped the bag shut. She sat on the couch and pulled out her phone. The text from Colonel Ashford was still there. 48 hours. After that, the offer's gone. Maya opened a reply, typed 4 words, and hit send. "I'm in." "When do I leave?" The response came back in less than a minute. "Transport picks you up Friday, 0600. Pack light. Don't tell anyone." Maya set the phone down and closed her eyes. She'd made her choice. Now she had to live with it. The next 3 days passed in a blur. Maya ignored calls from the hospital. She ignored texts from Sandra asking if she was okay, from Linda asking her to reconsider, from people she barely knew offering sympathy for something they didn't understand. She went running every morning, 6 miles through the empty streets, pushing until her legs burned and her lungs screamed. She ate meals that tasted like cardboard. She slept in 2-hour increments, waking from dreams she couldn't remember but left her drenched in sweat. On Thursday night, she wrote a letter to her landlord, left a check for next month's rent, and packed the last of her things. The apartment looked hollow without her stuff in it, like she'd never been there at all. Maybe that was better, easier to disappear when you'd never really existed. She slept on the couch that night, the duffel bag beside her, the photo of her unit tucked into the front pocket. At 5:30 a.m., her alarm went off. She showered, dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, and made coffee. At 5:55, headlights swept across the living room window. A black SUV idled at the curb. Maya grabbed her bag, took one last look at the apartment, and walked out. She locked the door behind her and dropped the keys through the mail slot. The driver of the SUV, a young guy in fatigues, stone-faced, nodded when she climbed in. "Reeves?" "Yeah. We've got a 2-hour drive. Get comfortable." They drove in silence. Maya watched the city disappear behind them, replaced by farmland and then forest. The sun rose, pale and cold. The driver didn't talk. Maya didn't mind. She closed her eyes and tried not to think about what came next. At 8:15, they pulled into a private airfield. A cargo plane sat on the tarmac, engines already running. The driver parked, popped the trunk. "This is your stop." Maya grabbed her bag and got out. The driver didn't wait. He pulled away, tires crunching on gravel. Maya walked toward the plane. A man in fatigues met her at the ramp, young, maybe 30, with a scar through his left eyebrow. "Specialist Reeves. I'm Lieutenant Jason Briggs. I'll be your liaison." "Great. First deployment back?" "Something like that." "Nervous? Should I be?" Briggs grinned. "Probably, but you'll be fine. Captain Hale speaks highly of you." Maya didn't respond. She climbed the ramp into the cargo hold. It was loud, cramped, uncomfortable. Jump seats lined both walls. A few other soldiers were already strapped in, faces blank, eyes distant. Maya found a seat, buckled in, and closed her eyes. The engines roared. The plane lurched forward, picking up speed. Maya felt the moment they left the ground, that split second where everything went weightless before gravity reasserted itself. She opened her eyes and looked out the small window. Below, the airfield shrank to a dot, then disappeared. She was airborne. No going back now. Deca. Fort Bragg was chaos when they landed. Trucks, soldiers, helicopters lifting off and setting down in a constant rhythm. Briggs led her across the tarmac to a barracks building, handed her a key. "Briefings at 1400. Don't be late." The room was small, institutional, identical to 1,000 other military rooms she'd slept in. Maya dropped her bag on the bed, changed into fatigues, and stared at herself in the mirror. The uniform still fit. That was almost worse. She walked to the mess hall, grabbed a tray of food she didn't want, and sat alone in a corner. Around her, soldiers talked and laughed and complained about the usual things: the food, the heat, the brass. Normal military life. She'd forgotten what it sounded like. At 1400, she reported to the briefing room. 10 people were already there: medics, engineers, logistics personnel. Colonel Ashford stood at the front, arms crossed, expression unreadable. When everyone was seated, she began, "You're here because you're the best at what you do. This mission is classified, high risk, high reward. We're deploying to a contested region to extract a high-value target and provide medical support to Allied forces. Rules of engagement are strict. You follow orders. You stay sharp. You come home alive." Questions? Nobody spoke. Ashford dismissed them. Maya stood to leave, but Ashford's voice stopped her. "Reeves, stay." Maya approached. Ashford handed her a folder. "This is your assignment. Memorize it. You deploy in 48 hours. 48 hours? I thought I had 2 weeks. Plans changed. The situation on the ground deteriorated faster than we anticipated. We're accelerating the timeline. Ashford's expression was hard. "You ready?" "Do I have a choice?" "You always have a choice. You made yours when you got on that plane." Maya took the folder and left. Back in her room, she opened it. Inside were mission details, maps, personnel files. She read every page twice, committing names and faces and contingencies to memory. Then she closed the folder, lay back on the bed, and stared at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Heard you're deploying. Stay safe. We need you back in one piece. Alvarez." She typed back, "How do you keep finding out about this stuff?" "I have my sources." "Don't get yourself killed, Reeves. You're too stubborn to die." She almost smiled. Almost. Then she set the phone down, pulled the blanket over herself, and tried to sleep. The next 2 days were a grind. Gear checks, weapons qualifications, medical drills. Maya moved through it on autopilot, muscle memory taking over. She barely spoke to the other soldiers. They didn't push. Everyone dealt with deployment in their own way. On the final night, she sat outside the barracks and watched the sky. Stars everywhere, cold and distant. Her phone buzzed. Linda, I don't know where you went. I don't know if you're ever coming back, but I hope you find what you're looking for. Maya stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, me too. She didn't sleep that night. At 0500, the call came. Wheels up in 30 minutes. Maya grabbed her gear, joined the line of soldiers heading to the transport plane. The air was cold, the sky still dark. She climbed the ramp, strapped into her seat, and watched the loadmaster secure the cargo. The engines started. The plane shuddered, rolled forward, picked up speed. Maya closed her eyes and felt the ground fall away beneath her. Somewhere below, Westridge kept turning. Webb was probably sleeping soundly. Linda was probably starting her shift. Sandra was probably wondering where Maya had gone. And Maya was headed back into the fire, because it was the only place she'd ever made sense. The plane leveled off, the interior lights dimmed. The soldier next to her, a kid, maybe 22, with a fresh haircut and hands that wouldn't stop shaking, leaned over. First deployment? Maya looked at him, saw herself 4 years ago. Yeah, you? Yeah, you scared? She thought about lying, thought about saying no, about playing the tough veteran, but his eyes were too honest, too raw. Yeah, she said. I'm scared. He nodded, looked out the window. Me too. The plane flew on through the darkness, carrying them toward a war none of them had chosen, but all of them would fight. The plane flew on through the darkness, carrying them toward a war none of them had chosen, but all of them would fight. 17 hours later, they landed in a country Maya had never heard of, but whose landscape looked exactly like every other combat zone she'd ever seen. Dust, heat, mountains in the distance that seemed to shimmer in the haze. The transport taxied to a remote corner of the airfield, away from the main terminal, away from anything that suggested civilian life. When the ramp lowered, the heat hit like a wall. Maya grabbed her gear and followed the others down onto the tarmac. 3 Humvees waited, engines running. A man in desert fatigue stood beside the lead vehicle. Older, maybe 45, with a weathered face and eyes that looked like they'd stopped being surprised by anything a long time ago. Reeves? Yeah. Major Kyle Brennan. I'm running this op. Get in. She threw her bag in the back and climbed into the second Humvee. The kid from the plane, his name was Private Ethan Cross, she'd learned during a brief introduction, sat across from her, his rifle clutched too tightly. 2 other soldiers filled the remaining seats. Nobody spoke. The convoy pulled out, kicking up dust, heading away from the airfield toward a compound on the outskirts of the city. The city itself was a sprawl of low concrete buildings, narrow streets. Markets shuddered against the afternoon heat. People watched from doorways as the Humvees passed, their expressions blank. Maya had seen that look before. It was the look of people who'd learned not to care who was in the vehicles because caring didn't change anything. The compound was surrounded by 12-foot walls topped with razor wire. Guards at the gate waved them through. Inside, the place was organized chaos. Soldiers hauling equipment, medics setting up triage stations, officers shouting orders. Brennan led them to a briefing tent, gestured for them to sit. Listen up. We're 5 clicks from the Syrian border. The target is a suspected chemical weapons facility. Intel says they've got stockpiles that could wipe out half the region if they're deployed. Our job is to secure the site, extract any actionable intel, and destroy the weapons. Medical team stays here and provides support for casualties. Rules are simple. Don't engage unless fired upon. Don't deviate from the plan. Don't die. Questions? A medic near the front raised his hand. What's the threat level? High. We've got hostiles in the area, unconfirmed numbers. Could be militia. Could be regulars. We don't know. Brennan looked at Maya. Reeves, you're lead medic. Casualties come to you first. You triage, you stabilize, you keep them alive until medevac arrives. Understood? Understood. Good. We roll out at 0400. Get some rest. The briefing ended. Maya found her assigned bunk in a prefab building that smelled like sweat and mildew. She dropped her gear, lay down, and closed her eyes. Sleep didn't come. It never did before an op. Instead, she ran through scenarios, GSWs, blast injuries, chemical exposure, mass casualties. Her brain moved through protocols like it was reading a checklist, calm and methodical, the only way to keep the fear at bay. At 0300, she gave up on sleep. She grabbed her med kit, checked every item twice, then headed to the mess tent. Coffee that tasted like battery acid. A protein bar that had the texture of cardboard. She ate standing up, watching soldiers prepare for the mission, checking weapons, strapping on armor, moving with the kind of focused silence that meant everyone knew what was coming. Private Cross was sitting alone at a table, staring at a photo. Maya sat down across from him. "Family?" He looked up, startled. "My girlfriend. We're supposed to get married when I get back." "She know you're here?" "She thinks I'm in Germany, training exercise." He tucked the photo into his vest. "Is it always like this? The waiting?" "Yeah." "How do you deal with it?" Maya finished her coffee. "You just do." At 0400, they loaded into the Humvees. This time, Brennan rode in Maya's vehicle, along with Cross and 2 other soldiers, a sergeant named Marcus Diaz and a specialist named Kara Jensen. The convoy rolled out into the pre-dawn darkness, headlights off, navigating by night vision. The landscape was barren, empty, just sand and rocks and the occasional scraggly tree. They drove for 40 minutes without seeing another vehicle. Then the radio crackled. "All units, hold position. Drone spotted movement 1 click ahead." The Humvees stopped. Everyone went silent. Maya could hear her own breathing, feel her pulse in her throat. The radio crackled again. Movement confirmed. 6 individuals armed moving toward the facility. "Alpha team, you're green to engage." The convoy moved forward, slower now. Maya's hand went to her med kit, a reflex. Cross was breathing too fast. Jensen reached over and squeezed his shoulder. "Steady, kid." They reached the facility 15 minutes later. It was a squat concrete structure surrounded by a chain-link fence, half collapsed in places. The main building looked abandoned, but the fresh tire tracks in the dirt said otherwise. Brennan spoke into his radio. "All teams, deploy. Medical holds at the perimeter." The soldiers dismounted, moving in tight formation toward the building. Maya stayed with the Humvee, her kit ready, watching. The assault team breached the front entrance. Gunfire erupted immediately. Short bursts, controlled, then longer exchanges. The radio exploded with chatter. "Contact east side, multiple hostiles." "RPG, get down!" An explosion rocked the building. Smoke poured from a second-floor window. Maya's heart was pounding now, her hands already moving through the motions she'd done 100 times before. She grabbed her kit and ran toward the building. Jensen yelled after her, "Reeves, stay back!" She ignored her. The first casualty was 20 meters from the entrance, a soldier down, blood pooling under his leg. Maya dropped beside him, cut his pants away. Femoral artery. She clamped it, applied a tourniquet, started a line. The soldier was conscious, screaming, "Stay with me. You're going to be fine. My leg." "Your leg's attached. That's what matters. Now shut up and let me work." She stabilized him, flagged 2 soldiers to carry him back to the Humvee, and moved forward. The second casualty was inside the building, a sergeant with shrapnel in his chest. Maya assessed him in 3 seconds. Pneumothorax. She needed to decompress it now or he'd die in the next 2 minutes. She pulled a needle from her kit, found the landmark, and inserted it between his ribs. Air hissed out. The sergeant gasped, his breathing easing. "Get him out, now!" More gunfire. Someone screamed. Maya moved through the building like she was running on autopilot, her brain cataloging injuries, prioritizing, making decisions faster than conscious thought. GSW to the shoulder. Tourniquet. GSW to the abdomen. Pack the wound, start fluids, get him out. Blast injury, multiple fractures. Splint, morphine, move. She lost track of time. It could have been 10 minutes or 2 hours. The building smelled like smoke and blood and something chemical that made her eyes water. When she finally emerged into daylight, her hands were covered in blood and her shirt was soaked through with sweat. Brennan was waiting outside, his face grim. "How many?" 7 casualties, 3 critical. They need medevac now." "Medevac's 20 minutes out." "They don't have 20 minutes. Brennan grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, we need immediate air support. Multiple critical casualties." "How copy?" The radio crackled. "Copy. Birds inbound. ETA 15 minutes. Maya went back to the Humvees where the casualties were laid out. She moved between them, checking vitals, adjusting lines, keeping them alive through sheer force of will. The sergeant with the pneumothorax was deteriorating. His oxygen sat was dropping, his breathing labored. She checked the needle decompression. Not enough. She needed to put in a chest tube. Here, in the dirt, with minimal supplies. She grabbed her kit, pulled out the tube, and went to work. The sergeant was barely conscious. She prepped the site, made the incision, inserted the tube. Blood and air drained out. His breathing improved. She secured the tube, checked the seal, and moved to the next casualty. The medevac helicopter arrived 12 minutes later. Maya helped load the casualties, shouting vitals and treatment details over the rotor wash. The bird lifted off, banking hard toward the horizon. Maya stood there, covered in blood, watching it disappear. Brennan approached. Good work. Is the facility secure? Yeah, we found the weapons. Intel's extracting data now. What kind of weapons? The kind that shouldn't exist. He looked at her. You did good, Reeves. Those men are alive because of you. She didn't respond. She just walked back to the Humvee, sat down, and stared at her hands. They were shaking now, the adrenaline finally wearing off. Cross approached, his face pale. That was insane. That was Tuesday. You weren't scared? Maya looked at him. I was terrified. I'm always terrified. You just can't let it stop you. They convoyed back to the compound in silence. When they arrived, Maya went straight to the showers, scrubbed the blood off her skin, and stood under the cold water until she stopped shaking. Then she changed into clean fatigues, grabbed her phone, and walked outside. No signal. She wasn't surprised. She sat on a concrete barrier and stared at the night sky. Stars everywhere. The same stars she'd looked at in Kandahar. The same stars she'd looked at in Westridge. Different places, same war. Her phone buzzed. Somehow, a message had gotten through. It was from Linda. I don't know where you are or what you're doing, but I hope you're safe. Maya stared at the message, then typed back, I'm fine. Don't worry. She hit send, knowing it probably wouldn't go through. Then she put the phone away and closed her eyes. The next 3 days were a grind. More missions, more casualties, a roadside IED that took out a supply convoy, a firefight in a village that left 2 soldiers dead and 5 wounded, a mortar attack on the compound that sent everyone scrambling for cover. Maya worked around the clock, sleeping in 2-hour increments, living on coffee and adrenaline. On the 4th day, Brennan called her into his office. We've got a problem. What kind of problem? Intel says there's a second facility, bigger than the first, and it's being evacuated. We need to hit it tonight. Tonight? We don't have a choice. If they move those weapons, we'll never find them. He handed her a map. You're going in with the assault team. We need a medic on site in case things go sideways. Maya looked at the map. The facility was deep in hostile territory, surrounded by terrain that provided zero cover. This is a suicide mission. It's a high-risk mission. There's a difference. Not much of one. Brennan's expression was hard. You signed up for this, Reeves. You knew what you were getting into. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that she'd signed up because she'd been backed into a corner, because Webb had destroyed her career and Ashford had offered her a way out that wasn't really a way out at all. But Brennan was right. She'd made her choice. Now she had to live with it. When do we leave? 2200. Be ready. She left the office and went to prep her gear. Cross found her in the supply tent, stuffing her med kit with extra gauze and tourniquets. I heard we're going out tonight. Yeah. Is it as bad as people are saying? Maya didn't sugarcoat it. Probably worse. Great. He tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. You ever think about just walking away, just saying screw it and going home? Every day. Why don't you? She looked at him. Because people die if I do. At 2200, they loaded into the Humvees. This time, the convoy was smaller, just 2 vehicles, 12 soldiers, and Maya. They drove for an hour through terrain that got progressively rougher, the road disappearing into dirt tracks that barely qualified as paths. The facility was in a valley surrounded by ridges, a perfect kill zone. Maya didn't like it. Nobody did. They dismounted half a click out and moved in on foot. The night was cold, the kind of cold that sank into your bones. Maya's breath fogged in front of her face. The assault team moved in silence, hand signals only, night vision turning the world into shades of green. The facility appeared ahead, a cluster of buildings, lights on, vehicles parked outside. Brennan held up a fist. Everyone stopped. He spoke into his radio, voice barely a whisper. Alpha team, breach on my mark. Medical holds at the rally point. Maya positioned herself behind a rock outcropping, her kit ready. The assault team moved forward. She watched them disappear into the shadows, her pulse loud in her ears. Seconds ticked by. Then the first gunshot cracked the silence. All hell broke loose. Automatic fire, explosions, shouting. The radio was chaos. Contact, north side. Man down. We need support. Maya ran toward the facility. A soldier was down 20 meters from the entrance, his leg torn open. She dropped beside him, assessed the wound. The bone was shattered, the artery severed. She clamped it, applied a tourniquet, and started screaming for help. 2 soldiers appeared, grabbed him, and dragged him back toward the rally point. She moved into the building. It was worse than the first facility. Tighter hallways, more hostiles, more chaos. She found a soldier with a GSW to the chest, another with burns covering half his body. She worked fast, her hands moving on instinct, her brain shutting out everything except the task in front of her. An explosion rocked the building. The ceiling collapsed 20 feet away. Dust and smoke filled the air. Maya couldn't see, could barely breathe. She grabbed the soldier with the chest wound and started dragging him toward the exit. Someone grabbed her arm. It was Cross, his face streaked with soot. We have to get out. The whole place is coming down. Help me with him. They dragged the soldier outside just as another explosion tore through the building. Maya hit the ground, her ears ringing. When she looked up, flames were pouring from the windows. Soldiers were evacuating, some helping wounded, some firing back at hostiles on the ridge. Brennan appeared, blood running down his face. We're pulling out. Everyone to the vehicles. Now. Maya counted heads. 11 soldiers. They'd started with 12. Where's Jensen? Brennan's face went dark. She didn't make it. Maya's chest tightened. You sure? I saw her go down. There's nothing we can do. They ran for the Humvees, carrying the wounded. Bullets snapped past, kicking up dirt. Maya threw herself into the back of the lead vehicle, pulled a casualty in after her, and yelled for the driver to go. The Humvee lurched forward, tires spinning, racing away from the facility. Behind them, the building exploded. A massive fireball lit up the valley, the shockwave rattling the vehicle. Maya looked back and saw nothing but flames. They made it back to the compound at 0300. Maya climbed out of the Humvee, her legs shaking. 4 casualties, 1 KIA. She'd saved 3, lost 1. The math never added up right. Brennan found her an hour later, sitting outside the medical tent. You did everything you could. Didn't save Jensen. Jensen was dead before you could reach her. That's not on you. Maya didn't respond. Brennan sat down beside her. I read your file. I know you've been through this before. Doesn't make it easier. No, it doesn't. He stood. Get some sleep, Reeves. We move out again at 0800. She didn't sleep. She sat outside and watched the sky lighten, thinking about Jensen and Delgado and all the others whose names she'd learned and then had to forget because remembering hurt too much. Her phone buzzed. Against all odds, a message got through. It was from a number she didn't recognize. This is Harrison Webb. I know where you are. I know what you're doing. And when you get back, I'm going to make sure everyone knows you ran away instead of facing the consequences of your actions. Maya stared at the message. Then she typed back, Go to hell. She hit send and turned the phone off. The next mission came sooner than expected. A convoy ambush 30 clicks north. Multiple casualties. Medevac unavailable due to hostile fire. Maya grabbed her kit and climbed into the lead Humvee before anyone could tell her not to. The convoy raced north, pushing the vehicles to their limits. They arrived to find chaos. 3 Humvees, 1 overturned, 1 on fire. Bodies everywhere. Maya jumped out and ran toward the nearest casualty. The soldier was barely conscious, his leg missing below the knee. She applied a tourniquet, started a line, and moved to the next. It took 2 hours to stabilize everyone. 2 hours of working in the open, exposed, with hostile fire coming from the hills. 2 hours of blood and screaming and decisions that would haunt her later. When the medevac finally arrived, Maya helped load the casualties, her hands numb, her brain running on fumes. They made it back to the compound as the sun was setting. Maya walked straight to her bunk, collapsed onto the bed, and closed her eyes. She was asleep before her head hit the pillow. She woke to someone shaking her shoulder. It was Cross. "Reeves, you need to see this." She sat up, disoriented. "What?" "There's someone here, from Westridge, looking for you." Maya's blood went cold. She followed Cross to the command tent. A man in civilian clothes stood inside, talking to Brennan. When he saw Maya, he turned. It was Tom Carver, the son of the patient she'd helped. "Ms. Reeves, I'm sorry to show up like this. I tried calling, but how did you find me?" "I'm a federal prosecutor. I have resources." He glanced at Brennan. "Can we talk? Privately?" Brennan nodded and left. Tom waited until the tent was empty. "There's been a development back home with Dr. Webb." Maya's jaw tightened. "What kind of development?" "The mother of the GSW patient, the one who died on Webb's table, filed a wrongful death lawsuit. During discovery, they found something. Webb's been falsifying patient records for years, covering up mistakes. Your case wasn't the first. It was just the first time someone called him on it." Maya stared at him. "How many?" "At least a dozen, maybe more. The hospital's in full damage control. They've suspended him pending investigation. The state medical board is involved. It's a disaster." Tom pulled a folder from his bag. "But here's the thing. They need you. They need your testimony. You're the only one who stood up to him, the only one who documented what happened." "I didn't document anything." "You filed an incident report, remember? After the GSW patient died. You filed it with the patient advocate." He opened the folder, showed her a copy. "This is the smoking gun. But without you there to testify, it's just paper. Webb's lawyers will tear it apart." Maya looked at the report. She'd forgotten about it. Forgotten that in the chaos of that day, she'd taken 10 minutes to write down exactly what happened, exactly what Webb had done wrong, exactly why that patient had died. "When's the hearing?" 2 weeks. Can you be there?" "I'm deployed." "I know, but I talked to Colonel Ashford. She said if you want to come back for the hearing, she'll arrange it." Maya sat down. Her head was spinning. "Why does this matter to you?" "Because my father almost died, and you saved him. And because I've spent 20 years prosecuting people who think they're above the law. Webb's one of them. I want to see him burn." Tom's voice was quiet but fierce. "But I can't do it without you." Maya closed her eyes, thought about Webb, about Jensen, about Delgado, about all the times she'd stayed silent because it was easier. "I'll be there." Tom nodded. "I'll send you the details." He left. Maya sat in the tent, alone, staring at the report in her hands. Outside, she could hear soldiers moving, equipment being loaded, the constant hum of a base at war. Her phone buzzed. Another message had gotten through. This time, it was from Linda. "Webb's in trouble, real trouble. Come home, Maya. We need you." Maya stared at the message. Then she stood, walked to Brennan's office, and knocked. "Come in." She stepped inside. "I need to go home for 2 weeks. There's something I have to take care of." Brennan looked up from his desk. "You're in the middle of a deployment, Reeves." "I know, but this is important." "More important than the mission?" She met his eyes. "Yes." Brennan studied her for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone. "Let me make a call." 72 hours later, Maya was on a transport plane heading back to the States. The flight was long, uncomfortable, and she didn't sleep once. Her mind was too full. Memories of the missions, the casualties, the feeling of Cross's hand gripping hers when he thought he was going to die, the look on Jensen's face the last time Maya had seen her alive. And underneath it all, the thought of Webb, of facing him, of finally making him answer for what he'd done. The plane landed at a military base outside Washington. From there, a car took her to a hotel near Westridge. She checked in, showered, and stared at herself in the mirror. She looked older, harder, like someone who'd seen too much and come back anyway. The hearing was in 3 days. Tom had sent her a briefing packet, testimonies, evidence, a list of other nurses who'd come forward. It was bigger than she'd realized. Webb hadn't just been negligent. He'd been systematically covering up mistakes, destroying careers of anyone who questioned him, and the hospital administration had let it happen because he brought in money. Maya spent the next 2 days preparing, reviewing the incident report, going over her memories of that day, rehearsing what she'd say. On the morning of the hearing, she put on the only professional clothes she'd brought, slacks, a blouse, a blazer that didn't quite fit right. She looked at herself in the mirror one more time, took a breath, and walked out. The hearing was held in a conference room at the State Medical Board building downtown. Maya arrived early. Tom met her in the lobby. "You ready?" "As I'll ever be." "Webb's already inside, with his lawyers." Maya's jaw tightened. "Good. Let's get this over with." They walked into the conference room. Webb was sitting at a table on the far side, flanked by 2 men in expensive suits. When he saw Maya, his face went pale, then red. He leaned over and whispered something to one of his lawyers. The board members filed in, 5 of them, all older, all serious. The chairwoman, a gray-haired woman named Dr. Patricia Holm, called the hearing to order. "We're here to review the complaint filed against Dr. Harrison Webb by the family of Daniel Ortega, who died at Westridge Medical Center on March 7th of this year. Ms. Reeves, you've been called to testify. Please take the stand." Maya sat in the witness chair. Dr. Holm looked at her over her glasses. "Ms. Reeves, you filed an incident report on the day Mr. Ortega died. Can you walk us through what happened?" Maya took a breath. Then she spoke. She described the trauma, the GSW, the way Webb had refused to listen when she told him about the subclavian bleed, the way he'd pushed epi instead of cracking the chest, the way the patient had died, preventable, unnecessary. Webb's lawyer stood. "Objection. Ms. Reeves is not a physician. She's not qualified to make those determinations." Dr. Holm looked at Maya. "Ms. Reeves, what's your medical background?" "I'm a registered nurse. Before that, I was a combat medic. 4th Combat Support Hospital, Kandahar. 3 years deployed. 83 documented saves. I've performed field surgeries under fire. I know what a subclavian bleed looks like, and I know what you're supposed to do about it." The room went silent. Webb's face was red now, his hands clenched. Dr. Holm made a note. "Continue." Maya kept talking. She described the other incidents, the way Webb had dismissed her concerns, the way he'd filed complaints against her when she pushed back, the way he'd used his position to silence anyone who questioned him. When she finished, Dr. Holm looked at Webb. "Dr. Webb, do you have anything to say?" Webb stood. "This is ridiculous. Ms. Reeves has a personal vendetta against me. She's been insubordinate from day one. She's using this hearing to settle a score. Is that why a dozen other nurses have come forward with similar complaints?" Webb's face went white. One of his lawyers leaned over, whispered urgently. Webb sat down. Dr. Holm shuffled her papers. "This board will deliberate and issue a ruling within 30 days. Dr. Webb, you are suspended from practice pending our decision. This hearing is adjourned." Maya stood and walked out. Tom caught up with her in the hallway. "You did great." "Did I?" "Yeah, you buried him." Maya didn't feel victorious. She just felt tired. "What happens now?" "Now we wait. But based on what I saw in there, Webb's done. He'll lose his license, maybe face criminal charges. You won, Maya." She didn't respond. She walked out of the building into the cold afternoon air. Her phone buzzed. A text from Linda. "I heard you testified. I'm proud of you." Maya stared at the message, then put the phone away. She walked to her car, climbed in, and sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. She'd won. Webb was finished. Justice had been served. So why did she feel so empty? Her phone rang. "Unknown number." She answered. "Reeves, it's Brennan. We've got a situation. You need to get back here. Now." "What kind of situation?" "The kind that means people die if you're not here. How fast can you move?" Maya started the car. "I'm on my way." The line went dead. Maya pulled out of the parking lot and headed for the airport, leaving Westridge behind in her rear-view mirror, the hearing, Webb, all of it fading into the distance as she raced toward the one thing that had ever made sense: the chaos, the blood, the impossible choices, and the lives that depended on her being there when it mattered most. But as she drove, her phone buzzed one more time. A message from a number she didn't recognize. "You think you've won. You haven't. I know things about Kandahar, about Marcus Delgado, about what really happened that day. Come back and I'll destroy you." Webb. Maya's hands tightened on the wheel, her blood turning to ice. Maya's hands tightened on the wheel, her blood turning to ice. She pulled over onto the shoulder, hazard lights blinking, and stared at the message. Webb knew about Kandahar, about Delgado. That meant he'd been digging, talking to people, pulling threads she'd spent 4 years trying to bury. Her chest felt tight. She typed back with shaking fingers. "You don't know anything." The response came immediately. "I know Private Marcus Delgado died because you made the wrong call. I know there was an investigation. I know it was buried. Come after me, and I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of medic you really were." Maya threw the phone onto the passenger seat and gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles went white. Her breath came in short gasps. Delgado's face flashed in her mind. 19 years old, bleeding out. His hand gripping hers while she waited for a medevac that came too late. The investigation had cleared her. Command had ruled it unavoidable. But Webb didn't care about facts. He cared about weapons. Her phone rang. "Brennan." She answered. "Where are you?" 20 minutes from the airport." "Make it 10. We've got a situation developing. Intel says there's a high-value target moving through the region. We need all hands." "I'm coming." She hung up, pulled back onto the highway, and drove. But her mind wasn't on the road. It was on Webb, on what he thought he knew, on how far he'd go to destroy her. She'd faced down hostiles with AK-47s. She'd worked through mortar attacks and ambushes. But this felt different. This felt like fighting a ghost. The airport was chaos. She ditched the rental, flashed her military ID, and was escorted through security to a waiting transport. No questions asked. 6 hours later, she was back in the compound, her gear barely unpacked before Brennan found her. "Glad you're back. We roll out in 2 hours. "What's the target?" "High-ranking militia commander. Intel says he's coordinating attacks on coalition forces. We take him out, we cut the head off the snake." Brennan's expression was grim. "This one's going to be messy." Maya nodded and went to prep. Her hands moved through the familiar motions, checking supplies, organizing her kit, running through contingencies. But her mind kept drifting back to Webb's message. She pulled out her phone, hesitated, then called Tom Carver. He answered on the second ring. "Maya, everything okay?" "Webb contacted me. He's threatening to dig up something from my deployment, something about a soldier who died." "What happened?" "Private Marcus Delgado, 19 years old, an IED hit our convoy. He was bleeding out, femoral artery severed. Medevac was delayed because of hostile fire. He died before they arrived. There was an investigation. I was cleared, but Webb's threatening to twist it, make it look like I made a mistake." Tom was quiet for a moment. "Did you make a mistake?" "I did everything I could. It wasn't enough." "Then you have nothing to worry about. Webb's grasping at straws. He's desperate." "Desperate people are dangerous. So are competent prosecutors. Let me handle Webb. You focus on staying alive." She hung up, but the knot in her stomach didn't ease. She finished prepping and joined the convoy. Cross was already in the Humvee, his face pale. When he saw her, he relaxed slightly. "Thought you weren't coming back." "Couldn't stay away from all this fun." He tried to smile. "Heard the hearing went well." "Heard wrong. It went exactly how it needed to." The convoy rolled out at 2100. They drove for 90 minutes through terrain that got progressively rougher, the road turning into dirt tracks barely wide enough for the Humvees. The target location was a compound in the mountains, surrounded by cliffs on 3 sides. Perfect defensive position. Terrible place to assault. They dismounted half a click out and moved in on foot. Maya stayed with the second squad, her kit ready, every sense on high alert. The night was cold and quiet except for the crunch of boots on gravel. Brennan signaled for a halt. They were 200 meters from the compound now, lights visible through the windows. The assault team moved forward. Maya positioned herself behind cover and waited. Seconds stretched into minutes. Then the first gunshot shattered the silence. The firefight was immediate and brutal. automatic weapons, RPGs, explosions that lit up the night. Maya watched the assault team breach the compound, saw muzzle flashes from the windows, heard screams over the radio. Then the call came. Multiple casualties, medical to the front. She ran. The first soldier she reached had taken a round through the shoulder, the bone shattered. She stabilized him, applied pressure, and moved to the next. A sergeant with shrapnel in his chest. She assessed the wound, pneumothorax, same as before. She decompressed it with a needle, flagged 2 soldiers to carry him back. More casualties poured out of the compound. Maya worked without thinking, her hands moving faster than conscious thought. Tourniquet, IV line, pressure dressing, morphine. Each decision made in seconds, each one carrying the weight of a life. Then she saw Cross. He was down near the compound entrance, clutching his leg, his face twisted in pain. Maya ran to him, dropped to her knees. The wound was bad. GSW through the calf, the tibia visible. She cut his pants away, packed the wound, applied a tourniquet. Stay with me. It hurts. I know, but you're going to be fine. You said that last time. And you were fine. You're going to be fine now. She started an IV, pushed fluids. Tell me about your girlfriend, the one in the photo. Sarah, we're getting married next summer. You better invite me to the wedding. He tried to laugh, but it came out as a gasp. Maya finished stabilizing him and flagged 2 soldiers to carry him back to the rally point. Then she turned back toward the compound. More casualties were coming out. She worked for another hour, losing track of time, losing track of everything except the faces in front of her, and the decision she had to make to keep them alive. When the shooting finally stopped, Maya counted the cost. 12 casualties, 3 critical, 1 KIA. The math never got easier. Brennan found her at the rally point, covered in blood, her hand shaking. Good work, Reeves. She didn't respond. She just stared at the body bag being loaded into the Humvee. Another name to add to the list. Another face she'd try to forget and never could. They made it back to the compound at 0400. Maya went straight to the medical tent to check on the casualties. Cross was stable, his leg splinted, morphine keeping the pain manageable. He looked up when she entered. You saved my life. I did my job. No, you saved my life. There's a difference. She didn't know how to respond to that, so she just checked his vitals and moved on. The other casualties were stable too. They'd all make it. This time. She walked out of the tent and found Brennan waiting. We need to talk. About what? About you going home. For good. Maya's stomach dropped. What? Colonel Ashford called. She wants you stateside. Something about the hearing, about Webb. I can't leave now. We're in the middle of... You don't have a choice. Orders came down an hour ago. You're on the next transport out. When? Tomorrow morning. Maya wanted to argue, but she saw the look on Brennan's face. This wasn't up for debate. What's going on? I don't know. But Ashford doesn't pull people out of theater unless it's serious. Whatever's happening back home, it's big. The transport left at 600. Maya barely had time to pack. She said goodbye to Cross, promised to visit him when he got back stateside, and climbed onto the plane. The flight was long and silent. She tried to sleep but couldn't. Her mind raced through possibilities. Webb, the hearing, Delgado, all of it tangled together in a knot she couldn't unravel. They landed at a military base outside Washington. A car was waiting. The driver handed her a phone. Colonel Ashford wants to talk to you. Maya put the phone to her ear. What's going on? Get in the car, Reeves. I'll brief you on the way. The driver took her into the city, weaving through traffic. Ashford's voice was clipped, professional. Webb went nuclear. He leaked a story to the press about your deployment, about Marcus Delgado, about how you were investigated for negligence. Maya's blood ran cold. That investigation cleared me. I know, but the story doesn't mention that. It just says you were investigated. It's causing a firestorm. The hospital's distancing themselves from you. The board postponed their ruling on Webb pending further review of your background. So he wins. Not if we move fast. Tom Carver's been working with the JAG office. They pulled the full investigation report. It's airtight. You did nothing wrong. But we need to get ahead of this before Webb's narrative takes hold. How? Press conference. Today, You, me, and Tom. We lay out the facts. We show the investigation results. We make it clear that Webb is lying. Maya's hands were shaking. I don't do press conferences. You do now, because if we don't control this story, Webb will. The car pulled up to a government building downtown. Ashford was waiting in the lobby, along with Tom and a woman Maya didn't recognize. Ashford made the introductions. This is Rachel Nguyen, DOD press liaison. She'll be coordinating the conference. Rachel shook Maya's hand. We're set up in conference room B. We've got about 30 journalists waiting. The key is to stay calm, stick to the facts, and let the evidence speak for itself. What if they ask about Delgado? You tell the truth. He died. You did everything you could. The investigation cleared you. That's it. Maya nodded, but her chest felt tight. They walked down a hallway to a conference room filled with cameras and reporters. Ashford stepped up to the podium first. Good afternoon. I'm Colonel Diane Ashford, Army Medical Command. I'm here to address recent false allegations made against Specialist Maya Reeves by Dr. Harrison Webb. Dr. Webb, currently under investigation by the State Medical Board for negligence and falsifying records, has leaked a misleading story about Specialist Reeves's service record in an attempt to discredit her testimony against him. Ashford held up a folder. This is the complete investigation report into the death of Private Marcus Delgado. It conclusively shows that Specialist Reeves acted appropriately and that Private Delgado's death was the result of circumstances beyond her control. Dr. Webb deliberately omitted this information when he leaked the story. He is attempting to manipulate public opinion to avoid accountability for his own actions. She stepped aside. Tom took the podium next. As the prosecutor handling the wrongful death lawsuit against Dr. Webb, I've reviewed extensive evidence showing a pattern of negligence, cover-ups, and retaliation against medical staff who questioned his decisions. Maya Reeves is one of many people Dr. Webb has tried to destroy for standing up to him, but the evidence doesn't lie. And neither will we. Tom gestured toward Maya. Specialist Reeves has agreed to answer questions. Maya stood and walked to the podium. The cameras felt like weapons pointed at her. A reporter in the front row raised his hand. Specialist Reeves, did you make a mistake that led to Private Delgado's death? Maya's throat was dry. Private Delgado was hit by an IED. His femoral artery was severed. I applied a tourniquet, started fluids, and requested immediate medevac. The medevac was delayed due to hostile fire in the area. He died before it arrived. The investigation reviewed every decision I made that day and concluded I acted appropriately. Dr. Webb claims you should have done more. Dr. Webb wasn't there. He doesn't know what it's like to work in a combat zone with limited resources and hostile fire coming from every direction. I did everything I could. It wasn't enough. I've carried that with me every day since, but I didn't make a mistake. Another reporter spoke up. Do you think Dr. Webb is targeting you because you testified against him? Yes. He's desperate. He's trying to discredit me to avoid accountability. But the facts are the facts. He let a patient die because he refused to listen. He falsified records to cover up other mistakes. And now he's trying to destroy my career because I told the truth. The questions kept coming. Maya answered each one, her voice steady, her hands gripping the podium. After 30 minutes, Ashford stepped in. That's all the time we have. Thank you. They walked out of the room. Maya felt like she'd been hollowed out. Rachel put a hand on her shoulder. You did great. That'll play well. Will it be enough? Tom nodded. It's a start. Now we wait for the board to respond. The response came faster than expected. That evening, the State Medical Board issued a statement. Dr. Harrison Webb's medical license was suspended indefinitely, pending a full investigation into allegations of negligence, record falsification, and witness intimidation. The hospital announced they were terminating his employment effective immediately. And Tom's office filed criminal charges: fraud, obstruction of justice, witness tampering. Maya watched the news coverage from a hotel room. Webb's face filled the screen, reporters shouting questions as he tried to get into his car. He looked smaller than she remembered. Cornered, broken. Her phone rang. It was Linda. Did you see the news? Yeah. He's done, Maya. You did it. Maya didn't feel victorious. She just felt tired. What happens now? Now you come home, for real. The hospital board wants to meet with you. They want to offer you your job back. I don't know if I want it. Then figure it out. But don't disappear again, please. Maya hung up and stared at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed. A text from Cross. Heard about the press conference. You're a badass. Get back here soon. We miss you. She smiled for the first time in days. Then another message came in. Unknown number. This is Dr. Patricia Holm from the State Medical Board. We need to speak with you regarding Dr. Webb's license hearing. Can you come to our office tomorrow at 10 a.m.? Maya typed back, I'll be there. The next morning, she walked into the medical board building. Dr. Holm was waiting in a conference room along with 2 other board members. They gestured for her to sit. Ms. Reeves, thank you for coming. We've completed our review of Dr. Webb's case. Based on the evidence, including your testimony, the incident reports, and the testimony of other staff members, we've determined that Dr. Webb engaged in a pattern of negligence, intimidation, and record falsification. His license has been permanently revoked. He will never practice medicine again. Maya nodded slowly. What about the other cases, the other patients? We're reviewing all of them. The hospital has agreed to full cooperation. We expect multiple settlements and possible criminal charges. Dr. Holm leaned forward. You did the right thing, Ms. Reeves. Coming forward took courage. A lot of people would have stayed silent. A lot of people did stay silent, but you didn't. That matters. Maya stood to leave, but Dr. Holm stopped her. One more thing. Westridge Medical has asked us to facilitate a meeting between you and their new chief of staff. They want to discuss your reinstatement. I suggest you hear them out. The meeting was scheduled for the next afternoon. Maya walked into Westridge Medical for the first time in 3 weeks. The ER looked the same, bright lights, chaos, nurses moving like water around obstacles. Linda saw her first and pulled her into a hug. You're back. For now. Sandra appeared, eyes red. I can't believe you're here. After everything, it's fine. Really. The new chief of staff was a woman named Dr. Rebecca Torres. She was younger than Webb, sharper, with an expression that suggested she didn't tolerate nonsense. She met Maya in a private office. Ms. Reeves, I've reviewed your file. I've also reviewed Dr. Webb's conduct. What happened to you was inexcusable. The hospital failed you. I'm here to make that right. How? Full reinstatement, back pay for the suspension period, and a formal apology from the hospital board. Dr. Torres slid a document across the table. We're also implementing new protocols. Mandatory reporting for all medical errors, independent review boards for complaints against attendings, and zero tolerance for retaliation. We should have had these in place years ago. We didn't. That changes now. Maya looked at the document. What if I don't want to come back? Then you don't. But I think you should. Because people like you, people who care, who fight, who refuse to stay silent, that's who we need. Not people like Webb. Maya stared at the paper. Thought about Cross and Jensen and Delgado. Thought about the soldiers she'd saved and the ones she hadn't. Thought about what Linda had said. Don't disappear. I need time to think about it. Take all the time you need. Maya walked out of the hospital and sat in her car. Her phone buzzed. A text from Brennan. Heard you're stateside for good. We're going to miss you. You're one of the best medics I've ever worked with. She typed back. Thanks for everything. Another text. This one from Ashford. Your contract's fulfilled. You're free to go. But if you ever want to come back, the door's open. We need people like you. Maya set the phone down and closed her eyes. For the first time in weeks, she let herself feel everything. The exhaustion, the grief, the anger, the small flickering hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd done something that mattered. Her phone rang. She almost didn't answer, but she did. This is Maya. Ms. Reeves, this is Daniel Ortega's mother, the patient who died at Westridge. Maya's chest tightened. Mrs. Ortega, I'm so sorry for your loss. Don't apologize. I called to thank you. You tried to save my son. Dr. Webb didn't. And because you spoke up, he can't hurt anyone else. My son's death wasn't meaningless. Because of you, it meant something. Maya's eyes burned. I wish I could have done more. You did enough. Thank you. The line went dead. Maya sat in the parking lot, tears streaming down her face, and let herself cry for the first time since Kandahar. For Delgado, for Ortega, for Jensen, for all the ones she'd lost and all the ones she'd saved and all the impossible choices in between. When she finally stopped, she felt lighter, emptier, but lighter. She started the car and drove. 3 days later, Maya walked into the hospital board meeting. Dr. Torres was there, along with Linda, Sandra, and several board members. They all looked at her expectantly. "I've made a decision," Maya said. "I'll come back. But on one condition, I want to be involved in the new protocols. I want to make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else." Dr. Torres smiled. "Done." They shook hands. Linda hugged her. Sandra cried. And for the first time in a long time, Maya felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. 2 weeks later, Maya was back in scrubs, back in the ER, back in the rhythm she'd been trying to escape and couldn't. A trauma came in, MVA, multiple casualties. She moved without thinking, her hands steady, her voice calm. One of the residents, a young woman named Dr. Keisha Murray, watched her work with wide eyes. When the trauma was over, Keisha approached. "That was incredible. How did you stay so calm?" Maya stripped off her gloves. "Practice. Lots of practice. I heard about what you did, standing up to Dr. Webb. That took guts. It took too long. But you did it. That's what matters." Maya nodded and walked away. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "I know you think you've won, but this isn't over. I have friends, powerful friends. And when I'm done, you'll wish you'd stayed quiet. Webb." Maya stared at the message. Then she forwarded it to Tom, to Ashford, to Dr. Holm. Within an hour, Tom called. "That's witness tampering. Again, I'm filing a motion to revoke his bail." "He had bail?" "Not anymore." That evening, the news reported that Dr. Harrison Webb had been taken into custody following violations of his release conditions. Maya watched the footage. Webb in handcuffs, being led into a courthouse, his face pale and sweating. She turned off the TV and went for a run. 6 miles through the city, pushing until her lungs burned and her legs ached. When she got back to her apartment, there was an envelope taped to her door. No return address. She opened it. Inside was a single photo. It was her army unit, the same photo she kept in her duffel. But this one had been altered. Delgado's face was circled in red, and written across the bottom in Webb's handwriting, "You can't escape the truth." Maya's hands went cold. She pulled out her phone and called Tom. "Webb's still coming after me." "What do you mean? He's in custody." "Someone delivered a photo to my apartment. It's a threat. I'll notify the marshals." "And Maya? This stops now. He's going to prison. He can't touch you anymore." But as Maya stood in her apartment staring at the photo, she realized something. Webb wasn't working alone. He'd said he had powerful friends, and someone had just proven it by getting past her security to leave that photo. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. Maya locked her door, checked the windows, and sat on the couch with the photo in her hands. The red circle around Delgado's face felt like a target. Webb was in custody, but someone else was doing his dirty work. Someone with access. Someone who knew where she lived. She called Tom back. "I need to know who Webb's been talking to. Phone records, visitor logs, everything." "I'll get them." "But Maya, you need protection. If someone's escalating, I don't need protection. I need answers." She hung up and stared at the photo. Then she pulled out her laptop and started digging. Webb had said he had powerful friends. She needed to know who they were. 2 hours later, her phone rang. It was Tom. "I got the visitor logs from the detention center. Webb's had 3 visitors since he was arrested. His lawyer, his ex-wife, and someone named Dr. Richard Brennan." Maya's blood went cold. "Brennan? Are you sure?" "Yeah, why? You know him?" "Major Kyle Brennan. He ran my deployment. But there's no way—" She stopped. Brennan had access to her service record. He knew about Delgado. He'd been the one who pulled her back stateside. "Tom, I need you to check something. Does Webb have any connection to military medical review boards?" "Why?" "Just check." 10 minutes later, Tom called back. Webb served on an advisory committee for military medical malpractice cases. He consulted on several investigations, including, he paused, including the Marcus Delgado case. Maya's stomach dropped. Webb was part of the investigation that cleared me? Not just part of it. He signed off on the final report. He buried evidence that could have implicated you because he wanted to use it later. He's been sitting on this for 4 years, waiting for the right moment. And Brennan? Cross-referenced military records. Brennan served with Webb at a field hospital in Iraq, 2009. They go way back. Maya felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. Brennan had been helping Webb the entire time. The deployment, the sudden recall, the timing, all of it orchestrated to isolate her, to make her vulnerable. Where's Brennan now? Unknown. He left the deployment zone 3 days ago. No forwarding orders. He's here, in Westridge. How do you know? Because he delivered that photo, and he's coming back. Maya grabbed her jacket and keys. Tom's voice was sharp through the phone. Where are you going? To finish this. She drove to Westridge Medical. It was past midnight, the ER quieter than usual. Linda was at the nurse's station doing paperwork. She looked up when Maya approached. What are you doing here? Your shift doesn't start until tomorrow. I need access to the hospital security system, the visitor logs from 3 weeks ago. Why? Because someone's been watching me, and I think they've been here. Linda hesitated, then logged into the system. Maya scanned through the entries. Most were routine, patients, families, delivery personnel. Then she saw it. Kyle Brennan. Checked in as a visiting consultant on the day Webb was suspended. He'd been in the building for 3 hours, long enough to pull her personnel file, long enough to copy her address from the HR database. Linda, I need you to do something. If anyone asks about me, where I live, where I work, anything, you tell them nothing, and you call me immediately. Maya, what's going on? I can't explain right now. Just trust me. Maya left the hospital and drove home. She parked a block away and approached her apartment on foot, staying in the shadows. The lights were off. Everything looked normal, but her door was unlocked. She'd locked it when she left. Maya pulled out her phone, dialed 911, and waited. Then she pushed the door open. The apartment was dark, silent. She reached for the light switch. Don't. The voice came from the corner. Maya froze. Her eyes adjusted to the darkness. A figure sat in her chair, silhouetted against the window. Brennan. You shouldn't have come back. Maya's hand moved toward her pocket, where she kept a pocket knife. Brennan stood slowly. Don't bother. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to offer you a deal. What kind of deal? Webb's going to prison. That's done. But the story about Delgado? That doesn't have to come out. The full story. The part where you hesitated. The part where you second-guessed yourself for 30 seconds before applying the tourniquet. The part that might have made the difference. Maya's chest tightened. I didn't hesitate. The helmet cam footage says otherwise. I've seen it. 32 seconds between the time you reached Delgado and the time you applied pressure. 32 seconds you spent assessing, thinking, deciding. And in those 32 seconds, he lost enough blood to make the difference between life and death. That's protocol. You assess before you treat. Tell that to his mother. Tell her you spent 30 seconds thinking while her son bled out. Brennan stepped closer. Or you walk away. You disappear. You stop making noise about Webb, about the hospital, about all of it, and the footage stays buried. Maya's hands were shaking. Why are you doing this? Because Webb's my friend. Because he saved my career once, and I owe him. And because I don't like watching good doctors get destroyed by mediocre nurses who think they're heroes. Maya's vision narrowed. Get out of my apartment. Not until you agree. Then you're going to be disappointed. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Brennan's expression darkened. You called the cops. Yeah. Big mistake, Reeves. He moved toward the door. Maya stepped in front of him. You're not leaving. Get out of my way. Make me. Brennan grabbed her arm. Maya twisted, broke his grip, and drove her elbow into his ribs. He stumbled back, swearing. She'd learned hand-to-hand in basic training, and she'd learned it again in Kandahar when a hostile got too close, and she'd had nothing but her hands. Brennan came at her again, She sidestepped, swept his leg, and put him on the ground. The apartment door burst open. 2 police officers, weapons drawn. "Hands up, both of you!" Maya raised her hands. "I'm the one who called. He broke into my apartment." Brennan was breathing hard, blood on his lip. "She attacked me. After you threatened me." One of the officers looked between them. "We're sorting this out at the station. Both of you, outside, now." The police station was fluorescent bright and smelled like old coffee. Maya sat in an interview room, hands wrapped around a paper cup of water she wasn't drinking. A detective named Sarah Mills sat across from her, notebook open. "Walk me through what happened." Maya told her everything, the photo, the unlocked door, Brennan's threat about the helmet cam footage. Mills took notes, her expression neutral. When Maya finished, Mills leaned back. "This footage," he mentioned. "Does it exist?" "I don't know. If it does, it was part of a classified investigation. He shouldn't have access to it. But he claims he does." "He claims a lot of things." Mills closed her notebook. "We're holding him on breaking and entering, but if this is part of a larger conspiracy involving Dr. Webb, we need more than your word. We need evidence. Then get a warrant for his phone, his emails. He's been communicating with Webb." Mills nodded. "I'll talk to the DA. In the meantime, you need to stay somewhere safe. If Brennan's working with others, I'm not hiding." "Ms. Reeves, I spent 4 years hiding from what happened in Kandahar. I'm not hiding anymore." Mills studied her for a long moment. "Okay, but you call me if anything else happens. Anything." She handed Maya a card. Maya pocketed it and walked out. It was 3 a.m. The city was quiet, streetlights casting long shadows. Maya sat on a bench outside the station and pulled out her phone. A text from Tom. "Heard about Brennan. Are you okay?" She typed back, "I'm fine. What do you need from me?" "The helmet cam footage. If it exists, we need to see it. Can you get access through your old unit?" Maya hesitated. She hadn't talked to anyone from her unit in 4 years. Hadn't wanted to. But if Brennan had that footage, she needed to know what it showed. She scrolled through her contacts, found a name she'd been avoiding. Sergeant Luis Alvarez, the one who texted her weeks ago. She hit call. He answered on the 3rd ring, voice thick with sleep. "Reeves? I need a favor." "What time is it? Late? Early? Does it matter?" Alvarez sighed. "What do you need?" "Helmet cam footage from the day Delgado died. Can you access it?" "That's classified." "I know, but someone's threatening to leak it. Someone who shouldn't have it. I need to see what's on it before they twist it into something it's not." There was a long pause. "Give me 24 hours. I don't have 24 hours. Then you're out of luck. This isn't something I can pull up on my phone, Reeves. I have to go through channels. Quietly." "Fine, 24 hours, but Alvarez?" "Yeah? Thank you. Don't thank me yet." Maya went back to her apartment as the sun was rising. The police had cleared it, but it still felt violated. She packed a bag, clothes, toiletries, her med kit, and checked into a motel on the edge of town, the kind of place that rented by the hour and didn't ask questions. She locked the door, wedged a chair under the handle, and finally let herself sleep. She woke 6 hours later to her phone ringing. It was Dr. Torres. "Maya, we need you at the hospital, now." "What's going on?" "The board's holding an emergency session. Webb's lawyer is claiming you fabricated evidence against him. They want to question you." Maya's jaw tightened. "I'll be there in 20 minutes." She dressed quickly and drove to the hospital. The boardroom was full. Torres, Dr. Holm, several other board members, and Webb's lawyer, a man in his 60s with silver hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. His name was Gerald Ashcroft, and he had a reputation for getting guilty people acquitted. Ashcroft stood when Maya entered. "Ms. Reeves, thank you for coming. I'll be brief. My client maintains that your testimony against him was motivated by personal animosity and that you fabricated key details of the incident involving Daniel Ortega." Maya sat down. "I didn't fabricate anything. I documented what happened. The incident report is dated the same day as the patient's death. Webb didn't even know I'd filed it until the lawsuit. Convenient timing, don't you think?" "Convenient would have been staying silent." I didn't. Ashcroft pulled out a folder. I have testimony from 3 nurses who state that you had a pattern of insubordination toward Dr. Webb, that you frequently questioned his decisions in front of staff, that you created a hostile work environment. Who gave you that testimony? Ashcroft smiled. I'm not at liberty to say. Doctor. Torres leaned forward. Mr. Ashcroft, unless you have evidence that Ms. Reeves falsified her report, this line of questioning is inappropriate. I have evidence that she had motive to lie, and I have evidence that she's been involved in questionable incidents during her military service. He pulled out another document, including an investigation into the death of Private Marcus Delgado, where she was accused of hesitation under fire. Dr. Holm interrupted. That investigation cleared her. The investigation was inconclusive, and the footage that would prove what happened has mysteriously disappeared. Maya's blood boiled. It hasn't disappeared. It's classified, and you shouldn't have access to any of this. I have access because your friend Major Brennan provided it. As a concerned colleague who believes the public deserves to know the truth about your competence. Maya stood. Brennan broke into my apartment last night. He's being held on criminal charges. And if you're working with him, you're part of a conspiracy to obstruct justice. Ashcroft's smile faltered. Dr. Torres stood as well. This meeting is over. Mr. Ashcroft, I suggest you discuss this with your client, because if you're using illegally obtained information, the Bar Association will be very interested. Ashcroft gathered his papers and left. Dr. Holm turned to Maya. Are you all right? I'm fine. You're not fine. None of this is fine. Dr. Holm's expression was fierce, but we're going to make it right. I promise you that. That evening, Alvarez called. I got the footage. Maya's heart pounded. What's on it? Exactly what you said. You assessed. You applied pressure. You called for medevac. Total time elapsed from when you reached Delgado to when you applied the tourniquet. 8 seconds, not 32. Whoever told Brennan it was 32 was lying. Maya closed her eyes. Can you send it to me? Already did. Check your email. She opened her laptop. The file was there. She watched it 3 times, feeling something break loose in her chest. 8 seconds. She'd spent 4 years carrying guilt over 32 seconds that had never existed. She forwarded the video to Tom with a message. This is what Brennan and Webb were threatening me with. It's a lie. Tom called 5 minutes later. I'm taking this to the judge. This is witness tampering, intimidation, conspiracy. Webb's going to prison for a long time, and so is Brennan. What about Ashcroft? If we can prove he knew the information was fabricated, he's disbarred, at minimum. Maya felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Not victory, not vindication, just the absence of weight. What happens now? Now we finish this, Seb. The trial was fast-tracked. Webb's lawyer tried to delay, but the judge wasn't having it. 3 weeks later, Maya sat in a courtroom packed with journalists, hospital staff, and families of Webb's victims. Webb sat at the defense table, thinner than she remembered, his face gray. Tom called Maya to the stand first. She walked up, placed her hand on the Bible out of procedure, and sat down. Tom approached. Miss Reeves, can you describe your relationship with Dr. Harrison Webb? He was my supervisor at Westridge Medical. He routinely dismissed my input, belittled me in front of staff, and retaliated when I questioned his decisions. Did you ever file complaints about his behavior? Yes, multiple times. Nothing happened. Why do you think that is? Because he brought in money. The hospital protected him. Tom pulled up the helmet cam footage on a screen. Dr. Webb and his associate, Major Kyle Brennan, threatened you with this footage. They claimed it showed you hesitating for 32 seconds before treating Private Marcus Delgado. What does it actually show? Maya watched the screen, saw herself reaching Delgado, assessing the wound, applying the tourniquet. 8 seconds. It shows me doing my job. They lied. Yes. Why? Because they wanted me to stay silent. They wanted me to let Webb get away with negligence, with falsifying records, with destroying careers. They wanted me to disappear. Tom turned to the jury. Ms. Reeves didn't disappear. She stood up. She told the truth. And for that, Dr. Webb and Major Brennan tried to destroy her. He looked at Maya. Why did you keep fighting? Maya thought about Delgado. about Ortega, about all the others. Because people died, and someone had to care. The courtroom was silent. Tom nodded. No further questions. Webb's lawyer tried to cross-examine, but there was nothing left to attack. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes. When they came back, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts: fraud, obstruction of justice, witness tampering, conspiracy. Webb's face crumpled. Brennan, sitting in the gallery, stood and tried to leave. 2 marshals stopped him. He was arrested on the spot. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Maya ignored them and walked to her car. Tom caught up with her. "You did it." "We did it." "What are you going to do now?" Maya looked up at the sky. It was clear, cold, the kind of day that felt like a new start. "I don't know yet." 2 weeks later, Maya stood in front of the Westridge medical staff. Dr. Torres had called an all-hands meeting. Everyone was there: doctors, nurses, techs, administrators. Torres spoke first. "We've spent the last month confronting our failures. We protected the wrong people. We silenced the right ones. That ends today. We're implementing mandatory reporting systems, independent review boards, and zero-tolerance policies for retaliation. And we're creating a new position: patient advocate and safety officer. Someone whose job is to speak up when something's wrong. Someone who reports directly to the board, not to the attendings." She looked at Maya. "We'd like that person to be you." Maya blinked. "Me?" "You've proven you'll stand up for patients even when it costs you. That's who we need." Maya looked around the room, saw Linda smiling, saw Sandra nodding, saw faces she recognized and faces she didn't, all watching, waiting. "I'll do it, but I have conditions." "Name them." 1. I still work clinical shifts. I'm not giving up patient care. 2. If I report something and it gets ignored, I go public. No cover-ups. 3. We create a fund for families affected by Webb's negligence. They deserve compensation. Torres nodded. "Done. All of it." The room erupted in applause. Maya felt her throat tighten. She wasn't used to this, wasn't used to people listening. 6 months later, Maya stood in the ER, back in scrubs, responding to a trauma. MVA, critical injuries. She worked fast, hands steady, voice calm. The attending on duty, Dr. Murray, the resident who'd watched her work months ago, assisted without question. When the patient was stabilized, Murray looked at her. "You make it look easy." "It's not easy. It just has to be done." Her phone buzzed. A text from Cross. "Hey, I'm stateside. Physical therapy's going well. Wedding's in 3 months. You better be there." Maya smiled and typed back. "Wouldn't miss it." Another text came in. This one from Alvarez. "Heard about your new position. Proud of you, Reeves. You're doing good work." She put the phone away and looked around the ER. It was chaos, as always. Patients waiting, monitors beeping, nurses moving fast. But it felt different now. It felt like a place where people listened, where speaking up mattered, where she mattered. Linda appeared beside her. "You good?" "Yeah, I'm good. Webb's sentencing is tomorrow. You going?" Maya thought about it, then shook her head. "No, I don't need to see it. I already know how it ends." "How?" "He's done. I'm not." The next morning, Maya received a call from Dr. Holm. Webb was sentenced to 12 years, Brennan got 8. Ashcroft was disbarred. Maya nodded. "Thank you for letting me know. There's more. The families of Webb's victims asked me to pass along a message. They want to meet you, to thank you." "They don't need to thank me. They want to. Will you do it?" Maya hesitated, then said yes. The meeting was held at a community center. 15 families. 15 lives affected by Webb's negligence. They sat in a circle, and one by one, they spoke. They told stories about their loved ones, about the mistakes that had been covered up, about the years they'd spent wondering if they were crazy, if they were imagining things. And they thanked Maya for speaking up, for fighting, for refusing to let Webb win. When it was over, a woman approached her. Mrs. Ortega, Daniel's mother. She took Maya's hands. "My son died." "Nothing changes that. But because of you, he didn't die for nothing. You made sure of that." Maya's eyes burned. I wish I could have saved him. You did save him, just not the way you thought. You saved his memory. You saved his truth. That matters. 1 year later, Maya stood at a podium in front of a room full of medical students. She'd been invited to speak at a conference on patient safety and advocacy. She looked out at the young faces, all of them eager, all of them still believing the system worked. She spoke about Webb, about Delgado, about the cost of staying silent, and she spoke about what she'd learned. You're going to see things that are wrong. You're going to work with people who cut corners, who bully staff, who put egos above patients, and you're going to have a choice. You can stay quiet. You can protect yourself. Or you can speak up. And speaking up is hard. It's terrifying. It'll cost you. But here's what I learned. Staying silent costs more. It costs lives. It costs truth. It costs the person you're supposed to be. She paused, looking at the faces watching her. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who finally got tired of being silent. And if I can do it, so can you. The room erupted in applause. When it died down, a student raised her hand. What would you say to someone who's scared, who doesn't think they have the power to change anything? Maya thought about that night in the trauma bay, about the 4 soldiers she'd saved, about the moment she'd decided to stop running. I'd say you have more power than you think, and the only way you lose it is if you give it away. After the conference, Maya drove to a cemetery on the outskirts of town. She walked through rows of headstones until she found the one she was looking for. Marcus Delgado. Beloved son, brother, soldier. She knelt down, placed a hand on the stone. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry it took me so long to stop running from it. But I'm trying now. I'm trying to make sure it means something. The wind picked up, cold and clean. Maya stood, turned, and walked back to her car. Her phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Torres. Emergency meeting tomorrow. New hospital safety initiative. We want your input. Maya smiled and typed back. I'll be there. She drove back to Westridge as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The city spread out below her, lights beginning to flicker on. Somewhere in that city, someone was fighting their own battle. Someone was deciding whether to speak up or stay silent. Someone was wondering if they mattered. Maya hoped they'd find the answer she had, that speaking up was terrifying, that it cost everything, but that silence cost more. She pulled into the hospital parking lot, grabbed her bag, and walked inside. The ER was already buzzing, traumas, emergencies, the constant rhythm of lives hanging in the balance. Linda waved from the nurse's station. Sandra called out a greeting. Dr. Murray was reviewing charts. Maya tied her hair back, put on her badge, and stepped into the chaos. Not because it was easy, not because she'd figured everything out, but because people needed her. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. The doors opened. A gurney rushed in. Maya moved forward, her hand steady, her voice calm. What have we got? And she got to work.